Hello, everyone. If you've landed here, you've landed on Let's Talk News, and I'm your host, Leticia Remauro, and I am exhausted. So, this show is probably going to be crappier than normal. Um, we do have a few things to talk about. I'm waiting for the Senate to come back into session, so maybe we can watch that together when they do come into session. I got C-SPAN playing in the background. Um, we got Mom Donnie doing some crazy stuff. Um, Wonder if you saw that he is proposing to buy his cousin's building to create a city-owned grocery store. The building was condemned 5 years ago, and he's looking to buy it. Oh, my mother is here. So, Mom, it's you and me. How are you, Mom? I guess everybody is kind of bushed. Um, and I'm sorry that we didn't have a show on Thursday. I was traveling and I think I had said it already. I couldn't figure out how to do the show from my phone, especially I wasn't sure if I had Wi-Fi in the airport and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it was a whirlwind weekend. Oh, thank you, Mom. I appreciate that. It was a whirlwind weekend. I was in Staten Island, and I attended Nicole Maliotakis, the Congresswoman's 45th birthday party, which was really lovely. There were lots and lots of people there. And everybody had a great time. She is, working really closely with the president to try and get government open and, to try and protect us, the taxpayer, from Democrat hands being in our pocket and, forcing us to pay more for everything. And that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. This whole Obamacare thing that the Democrats keep on saying that they need to fund. They want a year. They want more money spent on Obamacare. And, we've said it already, it's not working. But I thought that I would play this video. It's a little long, but it's worth it, I think, to listen to, because this is back 10 years ago, okay, when Obamacare was only 5 years old, and they were assessing whether or not it worked. And it wasn't working as it was designed to work. And this guy's kind of funny. And I think that you'll enjoy it. So why don't I play this video, and hopefully we'll be joined by more people. Watch.
Affordable Care Act sought to make the labor market less bananas, decrease health-related bankruptcies, the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States, and ultimately to insure those 44 million people without insurance, while at the same time, over time, decreasing the amount of money we spend on healthcare. It was going to solve the access problem by creating these healthcare exchanges, where private companies could compete for people's business, but they couldn't discriminate based on gender or pre-existing conditions. The law also would expand Medicaid, which would get insurance to more poor people, and it required companies with more than 50 employees to provide affordable insurance to their employees or else pay a gigantic penalty. This would all be paid for, more than paid for, hopefully, by cost control measures. These ranged from getting tougher on Medicare fraud to incentivizing hospitals to keep elderly patients healthy so they don't get readmitted to the hospital. There's also a new tax on tanning salons and an increase in the Medicare payroll tax for income over $250,000 a year. But has it worked? Yes, insofar as things are better than before, and also no, insofar as we are nowhere close to a path to sustainable healthcare spending. So the ACA was phased in slowly, and the real meat of it didn't get going until 2014. You'll recall the rollout of the healthcare exchanges in late 2013 was a complete disaster. The website healthcare.gov was plagued with glitches and really just didn't work. Admittedly, buying private insurance in the US before the Obamacare exchanges was arguably even worse than healthcare. But it was just terrible. I remember trying to sign up in those early months, and it was truly awful. What has not been widely reported is that now it's really easy. In general, the exchanges now work very well, and more than 12 million Americans, including me, have signed up for insurance through them. Insurance premiums are going up on average more slowly than they did before the exchange. exchanges and more insurers are participating, which means there will be more competition in the market. Plus, the law is costing less than expected because fewer employers than expected have dropped people off their insurance, and it doesn't seem to be negatively affecting the job market. It's certainly led to more freedom in the labor market. For instance, Sarah Green could leave her insurance-providing museum job to start an art show with PBS Digital. And certainly for people who can get insurance now who couldn't before, either because of pre-existing conditions or because they couldn't afford it without the government subsidies, the ACA is a really big deal. And none of the collapse of the healthcare system or death panel predictions have come to pass. Instead, uninsurance rates in the US have dropped dramatically, and early signs indicate that at least in some sectors, the law is improving health. By the way, sources for all this stuff in the doobly-doo. On the other hand, many millions of people still don't have insurance, and underinsurance, where people technically have insurance but still end up with medical bills they can't afford, is a huge problem. And while the growth of our healthcare costs has slowed, we still spend over 17% of our GDP on healthcare. Most other developed countries spend far less than that and still have citizens who live longer and healthier lives than Americans. And before you say that's because Americans eat or drink or smoke or whatever more than British people, no, that's simply not true. Have you ever met an actual British person? I don't mean like Jack or Finn or Charlie, I mean a real one. So yeah, if nothing changes, healthcare costs are still going to crush us in the long run, because the thing about the ACA is that it's not particularly radical. Like the 12 million people who've gotten insurance through the exchanges, that's less than 4% of Americans. For the vast majority of people, very little has changed, and that means that the underlying problems haven't really changed. We spend way too much on healthcare and we get too little in return. To take that seriously would require radical change, government interventions like price controls, for instance, or a single-payer healthcare system, or a truly free market system where if you show up to the hospital with a gunshot wound and you can't pay for treatment, you don't get treatment. So Hank, the old system definitely wasn't working, and the ACA is working insofar as its job is to get health insurance to people who don't have it without disturbing the health insurance ecosystem for most people. But the ACA didn't really replace an existing system so much as it grew on top of it. Now, the fact that so many insurers are bringing more plans to the exchanges indicates that probably the ACA will continue to work unless the Supreme Court eviscerates it in a few months. But the ACA has not and will not solve the long-term healthcare spending challenge that we face. Neither, of course, would repealing the law. If anything, the healthcare spending problem was worse before Obamacare. Rather than the endless discussions of repeal or defend, we should be frank about the choices before us. As healthcare economist and healthcare triage host Aaron Carroll told me, trade-offs are messy. You can get reform more easily and more cleanly, but not necessarily while preserving the private market. You can make healthcare cheaper, but not without imposing even more regulation. You can insure more people and make it cost less for everyone, but not without spending more tax dollars. Hank, healthcare policy experts across the political spectrum seem to acknowledge this complex reality. It's our job now to make our politicians acknowledge it too. Again, for more information and lots of...
So I hope that kind of put things in perspective. The whole government shutdown is about this ACA and healthcare, and everything is in sound bites, but people don't understand that this thing is not exactly working. The insurance rates have gone up 35 times faster than inflation has over the last, since its inception, so over the last 15 years. That's problematic because as we had said in another show, the middle class never did benefit from the Affordable Care Act. More people are now insured, but we also have many more people in the country than we had then. We have 30 million people more in the country that we know of. It could actually be 50 or 60 million people more in the country. And for the poor people, the ACA has worked. But for the middle class, it just has not worked. Hello, Angela Ricca. It was so good to see you this weekend. Hello, Andrew. Happy Sunday to you. And hello, Maisie. So, tell me what you think. I mean, I traveled this weekend. Unfortunately, Spirit, I didn't have a problem not going or coming. We were delayed 90 minutes going to New York, and we were delayed 40 minutes coming back to South Carolina. I hear, people, I was greeted today when I walked into Spirit Airlines with, "Are you going to Fort Lauderdale? If so, your flight's canceled." And I, thankfully wasn't. But apparently people's flights have been canceled all over the place. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you think about Obamacare. I mean, what you know. Not just what you hear in the news, but what you know and what you think. Are you insured through Obamacare? Or are you insured through work? The other thing is that Obamacare is costing businesses a ton of money that they cannot keep up with, which is why a lot of the small businesses are gone. And people are choosing to work for bigger businesses where they get health care, and the business pays a lion's share of the of the payment for the insurance. And that's why what's going on right now is there's a fight for more subsidies, because just in case anyone hasn't seen the other shows, during COVID, the Congress raised the subsidies to the insurance companies, to make sure that people, had coverage with COVID. And then in 2023, they extended those increased subsidies with a sunset in 2025. And why they didn't take this up, if they really wanted these increases to stay, why they didn't take it up when they had control of both houses is beyond me. Unless they knew it just wasn't affordable, and it would bankrupt the country, because that's the truth. It would bankrupt the country. They're really just playing games at this point. And I want to know, do you believe that they're just playing games, or do you believe that there is a real need for these subsidies? I'd be interested in hearing. Okay, and I just want to show you, I don't know why the chat is so quiet, but if you don't talk, I have to. Anyway, Mom Donnie was elected mayor, and he wants to give everybody everything for free. And I just told you, but he wants his family to make money, right? He wants his family to make money by selling their buildings and buying his cousin's building with city money, with your tax dollars. But also, he's asking you for money already. Watch.
Oh, and one more thing. Remember how I told you a few months ago to stop sending us money? You can start again. This transition requires staff, research, and an infrastructure that can meet this moment. And it will be made possible by the people who built and believe in this movement. So I hope you'll make a donation at transition2025.com. Now let's get to work.
So he wants money for his transition, which is not unusual. That happens for every mayor. They need a transition committee, an inauguration committee, and they can't use taxpayer dollars for it. So they ask people to donate. But his smug bullshit. Who's he going to get the money from? He's going to get the money from the people that he wants to overtax. Hope you had a nice time in New York. I did. Thank you, Colleen. I heard you had to pay for alcohol at his victory party. Yes, he had. You had to pay for the alcohol at his victory party. I think they said it was between $5 and $10, and beers were $5 and liquor was $10. So it's the socialist thing. It doesn't work. It never works. It's not going to work with him. The city council has to push back. Absolutely has to push back. They just do. Let's see. When I see these things come up, I find them so hard to believe. I have been researching everything. Tell me which one. The Obamacare or the Mom Donnie cousin thing, because that's what we do too, Maisie. I see lots of things that are not true, and it takes me half the day to search it out, but I do search it out. And what I bring you has been well vetted. This Obamacare thing, and we've spoken about it over and over again, it's just not working. It never was working. And Trump said that when he came in, and he's been wanting to revamp it, but the Democrats went ape shit on him when during 45. He wanted to revamp Obamacare so that it actually did work. And Schumer and Pelosi just would not let him do it. And they were too busy impeaching him instead. Hochul said no free buses. Saw that today. Yes, that's true. He can't. He cannot. He doesn't have the ability to provide free buses. Hi, Tony. Tony, listen. He had more of a chance of providing free buses if he was an assemblyman, because he could have put the money in the budget for it. Okay, he could have gotten his colleagues to vote along with him, and he could have lobbied Hochul and said, okay, let's put $1 trillion in the budget for buses over the next 10 years. But of course, the state of New York doesn't have that kind of money. And so that's why it never happened. And as mayor, he's got a $136 billion budget. And the majority of that budget is in retirement. It's retirement costs, it's Medicaid costs, it's a certain portion of it has to do with the food stamps program. A lot of the money that comes into New York City is already spoken for because New York City has 330,000 employees. Okay, and a lot of them are cops and firemen and EMS. So the pension and sanitation, a lot of these are 30 and out or 25 and out. So there's that money, that $136 billion, a lot of it is spoken for in retirement. And I believe I'm not sure if it still happens, but I believe there's no Social Security charged in New York City. I'm pretty sure. I was referring to the Mom Donnie stuff. Yeah, well, Mom Donnie stuff. He doesn't know what he's doing. But why would he? Just because he spent 6 years in the assembly doesn't mean he learned anything. Because his job was to organize and to get more socialists. It wasn't actually to get anything passed. He could have passed lower rent. He could have passed lower bus fares. He could have passed just about everything that he wanted to pass in the assembly, because that's where it comes from. That's the proper space for it, not the New York City mayor. He's got no power for that. Obamacare was the worst. It still is. It's still out there. And that is exactly what is being fought over in the Senate right now. Senate went back in session, and supposedly they're going to do a test vote tonight. We don't know when. And supposedly there's 11 senators that are coming over. And I think that they've decided that they would fund the enhanced credits or the enhanced subsidies for Obamacare for another 6 months, because then that would give them the ability to negotiate a budget and fix Obamacare. And I believe that there are Congress people and senators that will pass it. So if it does pass, then they would have to have this. It would be like 3 bills. It would be, first off, because the CR that they were trying to pass in October was only good to the end of November. So they have to extend that date to January. Then they would have to, so they would have the CR, the extension of the CR to January or February, whichever date it is. And then it would be the additional funding for the enhanced credits for Obamacare. So it would be 3 bills passed in the Senate, and then those 3 bills would have to be adopted in the House. And if those things happen, then we get to open the government again. And then they can actually negotiate a budget. I mean, like a real budget that's, defense and education and all the things that the federal government funds, and money to states and money to Congress, so that they could bring home their money to their states. So just saw Dems are caving. They're ready to vote to open. Yeah. So that's what's happening. New York City unarmed pension are greater than the salary expense. Yeah, they are. Look for PBC dollars. PBC. Not sure I know what the PBC lingo is. I may, Professor, but I'm exhausted, so my brain is not firing on all cylinders. Do you think there will be probable city overspending. Well, the whole thing is that if the city overspends, then the state, remember when when the city went bankrupt and Koch, they almost lost New York City. The state can take it over if financially the city is not solvent. Trump wants to give money directly to people to buy their own health insurance. Is that a possibility? It's sounding like it is, because the Obamacare never helped the middle class. It helped the poor, but they already had Medicaid. Basically, what it did was it expanded Medicaid for the poor and Medicare for the elderly. And it expanded that to people who are not citizens. And I don't care what anybody says. Non-citizens are, they have found it. Non-citizens are receiving food stamps and they are receiving health care. So yes, I think that what the problem with Obamacare is like the shot. It was mandated. You had to do it. You had to have Obamacare. You had to have insurance. You had to have this, that, or the other thing. And we've said it before, we need a free market. We don't need government and business because they're not the same thing. Government has an endless supply of money to throw at things. Business needs to turn a profit to reinvest in itself if it wants to grow, or to take profit out and pay people. Only in government would somebody suggest that something that is not working be funded even more than it was funded before and subsidized. And that's exactly what they're doing with Obamacare. The public. You mean the PBS? A public benefit corporation. Public benefit corporation. Okay, but which public benefit corporation? I'm sorry, Professor. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. City can sell bonds without referendum. Oh yes, the city can sell bonds without a referendum. But there's only certain, that would be the Economic Development Corporation can sell bonds. I'm sorry, I just brain fart. The Economic Development Corporation can float bonds for the city, but they have, I believe that they have to be approved. I think that you can't just you can't put the bonds out there and take the money in and then not pay them off. I mean, I don't know what our the bond rating is in New York City. I followed it pretty closely when I worked in Battery Park City, because that had everything to do with us. In Battery Park City, we had a AAA bond rating, and when we made money above and beyond the revenue needed to run Battery Park City, that excess revenue went to the city, still does. So, but I don't know that the city is solvent enough I don't know what the bond rating is. Well, let's see. City can sell bonds without a referendum. Yes, that's what we just said. So, what can he do? He could do a lot of things. Can he do damage? Yes. But the thing is that it's a city. It's not a state. It's not sovereign. It's just a corporation, a subsidiary corporation of the state of New York. And if it becomes insolvent, the state of New York must take it over and make it solvent. And it could dissolve its incorporation, which I think Staten Island would love because it was the last to join the city corporation. And I think that Staten Island would love to get out of the city. But if the corporation becomes dissolved, then you would have 5 counties. Then the counties, then you could have like a county executive and town councils and things like that. And that's what would happen if Staten Island actually did secede. I mean, Sam Pirozola is talking about secession. I think that next weekend there is a rally for secession. So if Staten Island did secede, let's just say, that it would be its own county and it would answer directly to the state because it's a county of a state, and there would be governance. The state would give it the ability to govern itself. And you have to decide what kind of government you'd have. Would you collect sales tax? Would you collect property tax? Well, what would you do? But you make those decisions. It's self-determination. That's why they want secession. Beauty of forming PBC, he can fudge the numbers. Yeah, he can. But again, when it becomes insolvent, he still has a city council that he has to answer to. And if it becomes insolvent, then he's got to answer to the state. So, as much, yes, he could do a lot of damage, but he can't sustain it. I mean, like he can't just spend ridiculous amounts of money more than he has, because remember, a lot of the money that the city spends comes from the federal government. And there's a whole issue with that. Trump says that he doesn't want to give them any more money. And so who's going to become very important in this is going to be Nicole Malliotakis, the congresswoman, because she's going to become the go-between Trump and Mamdani for the money. But Trump doesn't have to give the city money for anything. So November 14th is the rally for secession. Do we need permission to secede? Yes, we do need permission. There's home rule on secession. What we would need is it would be a Senate and Assembly. I think the bill would have to come. It could come out of the Senate, but then it would have to have a home rule, which would mean that the city council would have to approve it. And once they approve it, then they'd send it back up, and then the governor would sign it. Why? Because the money we generate goes to the city. So if we secede, and if like the state says, okay, Staten Island, you don't have to be part of the city anymore, we take our money and we go home. But the city depends on our money to balance its budget. So they don't have to give us anything back, but they certainly need to take it to pay for the stuff in the rest of the city. So I don't think they'll ever let us go. That's my whole thought process. Friday, 10 a.m. is the rally. Should do it on a weekend. There's probably a reason that it's Friday at 10 a.m. Number one, for coverage, for news coverage, is probably likely. But two, I think he's probably got a lot of the old timers who are now retired and can get there, coming, and the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. So those are the people that were leading the charge. I remember back in the day in the 1990s when I first started with the community board and with all of this, before I worked for Rudy's and before I worked for Pataki, we wanted no sales tax on clothing. And that was Bob Catrona and, I can't remember the other guy's name. But anyway, they got it. They got it. Billy something. I can't remember Billy's last name. But they got it. We fought. And when Giuliani came in, he carried it, and Markey carried it up in the state, and that's how we have now no sales tax on clothing. Well, now it's $110, but then it was nothing, no sales tax on clothing at all, and it was great. And Staten Island did that in 1989. SCOTUS forced New York City to rewrite the city charter. Yes, because Brooklyn sued. And they said that what happened was there was a board of estimate where all 5 boroughs would meet, the borough presidents would meet, and they would decide on how the budget was spent based on borough needs, which I thought was a brilliant way to handle things. But then Brooklyn said that because they had so many people, that it should be one man, one vote. So they should have all votes shouldn't be equal because of the population of people. And then what happened was that the city council wound up being the one to do the budget. And that's when the community boards came in. And now the community boards have input on the budget. But it really was, it was terrible. Terrible decision. And it really screwed Staten Island and the Bronx. Rob Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, you're right. But New York's always been that way. New Yorkers always fudge the numbers, and they've always robbed one to pay the other. They will never approve it. The only reason I would think that maybe they would is because I was just talking to somebody this weekend, and they were telling me that 29 council members are now socialists or socialist leaning. So maybe they will. They want to get rid of the white borough. MTA, PBC, NA shows a loss of $13 billion for many years. Listen, MTA is so humongous, it needs to be audited, and it isn't audited. It needs to be audited. Not only does it need to be audited, but it also needs to be dismantled. It is too big. It absorbed all these other things. We need the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority. We need like the Triborough Bridge and Tunnel Authority, and like the Department of Transportation. What we need with the MTA is we need it to be separated out. Trains, like the transit, like the Staten Island Railroad is SERTOA, Staten Island Rapid Transit Organization Association, I think. We need all the trains in New York City to be under one umbrella. We need all the buses under another umbrella. What we need, the MTA has the Long Island Railroad. It has too many things. And it is so big, so ginormous that we couldn't even do the minority women-owned business programs. They wouldn't even, with their huge, enormous contracts, they wouldn't even consider working with women or minority-owned businesses. So the MTA always shows a loss, but who knows, because it's never been audited properly. So that's the first thing that should happen. Nicole was big on that. In 2022, Staten Island paid $1.9 billion in property tax, sales tax, and income tax. Yeah, $1.9 billion, and I don't know how much comes in. Of the $136 billion budget, I don't know that $1.9 billion would cover it. What we need, but we don't know what we need. That's just to do now. But then there's land transfers, Colleen. There's a bunch of problems, right? Because there's like all the city-owned land here that would then need the Staten Island as a county would have to purchase that from the city of New York. There would be a cost or lease it back. So there would be all the property, the roads, the sanitation. We'd have, I was just admiring our handiwork up in the dump when we moved the sanitation garage from Jersey Street up to the dump when I was chair of Community Board 1, and it's finally happening. That was I forgot how many, like $550 million project that would have to be paid back to the city. See, there's the problem. It's not just like, okay, go and you could take all our stuff. It's go and you've got to pay us now for all the stuff that we built for you. All the schools, every school, every public building, all of that will have to be purchased. So it's complicated. We need a lot of account. Can it be done? Absolutely. You have the city hold a mortgage. You pay mortgage payments. There's ways to do it. I mean, yeah, MTA needs to be doged. Absolutely. It tries very hard not to get doged. Would secession create more taxes payable for Staten Islanders? Okay, that's a really good question, Andrew, because here's the thing. If you did everything exactly the same as the city is doing now, yes, because we take in, we utilize more than we produce. However, we have the opportunity of not doing that. That's the whole idea of seceding. You don't want to do it dollar for dollar, apple for apple. You want to do it differently. You want to cut it down. You want to pare it down. You want to reduce. So anybody that says, oh, it'd be too expensive, don't listen to them, because that's you write your own blueprint. As your own city, you write your own blueprint, or you don't have to be a city. You could just be a county. Look at any of the counties. Look at Rockland County. I mean, look at Westchester County. There's a system of government with town councils, and that's what we originally were, right? We had the town of St. George, the town of Newdorf. You could have town councils. You could have that would be responsible for certain things. You don't need to have a city. It doesn't have to be the city of Staten Island. It could just be the county. It's self-determination, and it would people would decide how it should be and what the tax burden should be. Could we get it to be the same as you're paying right now, so there's no pain? Absolutely. You maybe lose some things, but I don't know. NYCHA also. Yeah, NYCHA should go under the umbrella of Battery Park City. I said that. Battery Park City knows how to handle buildings, knows how to make buildings make money. And if Battery Park City, which is an authority, subsumed the New York City Housing Authority, it could fix the housing problems that we have. And we could stop having them as project where everybody's low income and do a little bit of like 60-40, mixed income so that people have opportunity. So it's not just a poor neighborhood where nothing happens and there's no opportunity. And that's the best way to handle things. 80-20 was the smartest thing the city ever did, so that you don't know, who's your 20% neighbors, who the city's subsidizing. That to me, that's the best. 80-20, 60-40, those are the best. People, people who need help are living amongst people who don't need help. That's what we want to see in New York City. Let's see, 47 state PBC&A, 531 local ones. Local ones meaning cities, public, I don't know. Technically, don't we own it as taxpayers, and shouldn't we be allowed to take it as part of the divorce settlement? Okay, if it's negotiated that way, right? And the problem is we only have 3 city council members. So that's why everything is unfair for us. We don't have enough representation in the city. When you have Brooklyn with millions of people, and then Queens with millions of people, we don't stand a chance. We have 3 city council members. What are we going to do with that? They can't, and we're a Republican while the rest of the city's Democrat. It's very hard for them to sway the vote and to negotiate. But yes, we could, Colleen. We could, and you're an accountant. You work with numbers. You could have all that conversation. But it's like, okay, starting January 1st, Staten Island will no longer be the city's budget is June 30th, it ends. So July 1st, starting July 1st, Staten Island will no longer be putting its tax dollars into the city of New York. Okay, well, you got to pay us for this. You got to pay us for that. You got to pay us for the other thing. Well, 1/5 of it was built with Staten Island tax dollars. Not necessarily so, because we person for person, we don't pay equal. We pay more in property taxes, but less in like income taxes. So that has to be negotiated, and it's not going to be easy. Volunteer fire department like New Jersey and Long Island. Okay, but most of the firemen live on Staten Island, so what are you going to do with them? They're not going to want to go jump to live in Brooklyn, or because they have to live in the city. Doesn't the city have to vote to let Staten Island leave the city? Why would they vote to lose its piggy bank? They do. They do have to do it on home rule. But right now, majority of the city council is socialists, and they don't like the white people. So, and they don't know how to count. And they know nothing about money. So now's the time to do it. When people who think that, getting free everything, they could still get their $12 Starbucks. While they're in charge, we should try and sneak out. That's what I'm saying. 160.4 billion outstanding debt. New York City. If New York City's got that floating right now, oh God, that's I never looked at the debt. I have to be honest, or I don't anymore. I used to when I worked for Battery Park City Authority. If they have that floating right now, I don't know. That's okay. So then it's just a little bit of a tilt to having the state and Hochul take over the city. It almost happened before with Koch. I mean, or it did actually happen, right? They Cuomo had to bail him out. Yeah, it was almost bankrupt, the city. I can't remember. I can't pull it to the front of my mind. It's in here somewhere, but I'm just so tired today. But anyway, as always, we've gone over. So, and I'm trying to stay at 30 because 30 works, but 40 and 50 and 60 is too tedious. I love you all, and I'm so glad to see you. And I was so glad to see a lot of you in person on Friday. Tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow, the government will at least be on track to open the government. But I'll see you then. All right. Please, thank you all for watching and share with your friends.